All right. Hi, everyone. So today I'm doing a follow-up session with Dominic, and due to some of the difficulties we encountered in the previous interview in terms of Dominic's awareness of self, how he may have changed over time, we thought it would be a good idea to bring in Jamonte, who's Dominic's brother, as someone who can provide that third-party perspective, someone who knows him very well, someone who's seen him throughout the course of his life and can offer that extra check, as it were, to make sure that what Dominic is saying is also what is matching up in how he's been perceived. All right, so thank you both of you for coming today. I guess a question for you, Dominic, is what are some of the thoughts you've been having since we reached IEE as a potential typing for you? If I recall, you felt that you may have changed type over time. So what are some of your thoughts regarding this?
I guess my thoughts were more like I feel like in me I've always had two sides to me.
Mm.
One side that's a bit more soft and gentle and feminine and social, another side that's rougher and tougher and more detached and calculating. So I feel like IEE fits, I guess, the softer side and
Mm.
fits me at my social and personal developmental, I guess, best or ideal
Mm.
as far as what I've cultivated, and some of it is also due to uh, after. Are you familiar with A. McGilchrist?
That rings a bell,
Master
but
and Emissary. Master and Emissary. He's a writer of that, and Matter of Things, psychiatrist, and he wrote different books on the left and the right hemisphere, and how the West is more left hemisphere based, and how the right hemisphere should be what's dominant, and the left should serve it. So he puts it as the right hemisphere is supposed to do the reality testing and uh, do the reality testing and also clarify and think in terms of possibilities and keep to the reality actually, while the left hemisphere tends to keep to models and it tends to try to get a grip and a use.
the connection's going a bit funny. Let me just see if anything is slowing down the computer on my end. Just going to
Okay,
close a few
go I
windows.
can wait.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you fine now. Sorry, the connection went a bit funny. I closed down a few windows, which I thought may be slowing things down. See if it maintains a connection now.
Okay.
So yes, so you were talking about A. McGilchrist. You're talking about the left and the right hemispheres, and the idea that one is more the master, the other one is subordinate.
Yes. So I would say uh, IEE fits more of my right hemisphere. It fits
Right.
more of like when I'm not trying to like model or get a grip or take action and stuff. It fits more of like my openness and my receptivity to life and my capacity to consider options or to examine carefully. Actually, that's more left hemisphere too. But so I guess that's mainly what I've been thinking about. I've also been thinking about how there's a difference between temperament, personality, and character, and how sometimes these developmentally can they can overlap being subsets of each other. Like temperament is more like the the climate of your particular emotions and drives impacting your mental states and stuff like that. It's prenatal, while personality is more, as far as I've learned from neuroscience and childhood development, personality is more like you develop that at age 6, and it's more like a subset of temperament. And then type, I see type as sort of like a subset of personality, or in terms of like the strategy to uh, enact to be what you are. Actually, that's character, not type. Character is like that, and type is just a subset of personality. So those are some of the things I've been pondering and wondering about, and so I don't really know. It's just I've just been trying to get a grip on this. I'm like, why am I so, I guess, complex? Because even aside from my impairments, I feel like I've always been complex, and I have like contrasting sides, opposing drives and stuff in me that I can't reconcile. And I see that with everyone, but I see that with some people it's more intense. You can see it more clearly. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering if that's also what's going on.
I guess a question I'd ask of Jamond is, um, when observing your brother, would you say that he is someone who's incredibly complex and seemingly contradictory and hard to pick out a clear pattern from?
I mean, not necessarily. Like, me and him talk a lot. We have a lot of conversations, a lot, and most time when he talks, like I can get a straight point, so like I understand what he's actually saying to the point. I don't really have to like look at him like, wait, like you just said this, but you're saying this. It's more like he's more for me. He's more straight to the point for me.
Yeah. Okay. And if you could describe your brother in like, I don't know, maybe a few sentences, what would those key impressions of your brother be?
Um, are you familiar with Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tate, yes.
He has like a Andrew Tate kind of mindset, but more like not more of a like a man does this, a man does that. He has more like he's an Andrew Tate with both sides of the coin. This is all I'll say. Like he is he thinks inside the box, but also outside the box. But also like he can make both sides correlate and make sense to you type stuff.
Hmm. So you're saying that for Dominic, he looks at both sides of an issue and
Yeah,
he can reconcile both those sides
yeah,
for you when explaining things.
yeah,
Right. So he's someone who's actually makes sense for you. He actually makes sense of different ideas and perspectives in talking to you.
yeah.
Okay. That's a very clear and interesting account. So is there anything else about Andrew Tate? Isn't Andrew Tate the guy who wins over different sorts of women?
Um, he So I mean, over the years, over the 6 years of him doing content, they have been like people only take out the videos of him like saying that women are this, women are that,
Yeah.
but he's more as in like people should like rather like stop blaming other people for their misfortune instead of blaming themselves and excelling themselves. As in, he believes in that a man shouldn't like let himself go. He should like strive for greatness, strive for success, because that's the way he believes in God. He said that God made you to be successful,
Mm,
made you to be great. You're failing God by not trying to do those things. Same thing when it comes to women. He said women are the most precious things on this earth, and we should protect them and cater to them. But does not mean that we should succumb to anything a woman says or a woman's needs. Yeah.
okay. So is that ability to draw out truth from
Mm-hmm.
seeming contradictions
Mm-hmm.
that you identify as the clear similarity between your brother and Andrew Tate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So that's very interesting. So that's also something which I wouldn't have expected as much from an IEE typing, because IEs are normal. This is a type I often call the explorer. They're interested in finding out all different sorts of perspectives, but they're not someone who then tries to tie that together and make sense of the whole. They are more about this situation versus this situation. This depends on this. That depends on that. Whereas what you're suggesting, Jamond, is someone who does tie that together, creates a coherent picture. And if that's the case, that's a very different understanding of Dominic, because it might be that the reason, Dominic, you were coming across someone who's actually was contradicting in different ways is perhaps more due to your condition, and thereby how you talk about yourself comes across as contradictory because of that sort of difficulty with self-awareness. But to an external observer, you'd actually be someone who is actually making sense of things and is actually drawing out the underlying principles. Is that making sense to you, Dominic?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think that's exactly what's going on because, like, I have very difficult. I've never been very reflective or introspective.
Hmm.
I've been aware of my mind, like how my mind works, but not necessarily my emotions or my character. I mainly see myself through the mirror of other people, through what other people tell me. like other people figuring me out. So most of the insights I have about myself is due to other people have told me, and also due to certain things I passed through. But it's like I can't figure out trends in myself. It's very hard for me to keep track. So I might notice something might be irregular, but I might incorporate it as like, oh, this is also me. Like this is a feature of me. It's a feature of the whole, because I try to be holistic, but it might not be what's mostly regular. Like when he put me kind of like Andrew Tate, I found that interesting because I was just like, I do relate to Andrew Tate, and even in his delivery, that's how I used to be when I was growing up. But I've kind of softened, or I have to soften, because that does not get you received that well, depending on who you're talking to. And I guess there's a difference between me speaking and me listening. I listen in I guess, a softer mode, but when I speak, I tend to be very hard.
Fair enough. And well, I will say I don't know Andrew Tate very well. I've heard about him. I've seen maybe one video in which he's appeared, but I haven't really looked into in any sort of depth. I don't know, no clue what his actual type would be. What I would like to explore is that duality, Dominic, you mentioned before, about the difference between that sort of harder, more rougher side to you and that more soft and gentle side. And I guess what I'd like to ask is, for you, is the implicit desire to be someone who keeps options open, who allows possibilities to develop and lead into surprising directions? Or are you someone who would rather exercise your will to actually force things around you to be the way you want them to be?
The latter.
The latter.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually imposing onto reality, limiting the number of possibilities there are.
Yeah, like I keep to the first one because I'm aware I'm the latter. I keep the first one because I feel like it's more right brain, and it helps me be more holistic, helps me take in more perspectives, and it helps me be more accurate. Because my main aim is not just possibilities and perspectives for the sake of perspectives. I want truth. I want technical accuracy. I want to know what actually is, and that requires you actually being aware. Like I was listening to a conversation between Donald Hoffman and John Vervaeke on Theory of Everything with Kurt John Mongol yesterday, and they pointed out that every theory tends to point out its own limitations. It points out where it fails and what can replace it, and where it transitions into other theories. So that's usually what I'm after, and that requires being open. So I guess I feel like it seems like I put too much emphasis on the openness, but it's more like it's instrumental. It's for a particular end.
Right. That's very helpful to know. And would you say, now that's also slightly different things I'm also getting at here, in that on one hand, for you, it's being open for the sake of getting to the truth.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily suggest an implicit desire to impose yourself onto your surroundings and make it the way you want it to be.
I mean, I used to be like that getting older, and one of my INTP friend has told me I'm kind of controlling, and the sense that, like, and my sisters have noted that too, that like sometimes I want things to be my way, or I'll think I'm right. And I used to be very dogmatic, like I told you, like in terms of thinking in absolutes and stuff. So I was naturally prone towards that. And it's not till I loosen up or relax into myself that I can get away from that. Because I realize that's not the best way to be. You can't always be controlling people or trying to make them be how you want them to be or think how you want them to think. So it's like I have to take a different strategy at them. I can't be so direct.
So, Jamon, I've got a question about this. In what ways have you perceived Dominic to be more, say, controlling or stubborn or dogmatic?
I mean, for me personally, I don't really see him more controlling. I just see him as like he's my big brother, so I'm gonna see him as my big brother. Like my big brother giving me advice. Like I'd say, like I have something going on, like because I come home and like we talk about like a lot of stuff that involves like the human brain, because like I love the human brain. Like I enjoy talking about the human brain, and he knows a lot about the human brain. So like when I'm talking about like stuff like Kwame, I'm doing stuff like this. Like I call him Kwame because that's his name is Dominic, but the house and I call him Kwame. So I go, Kwame, this is what's going on. I think I should do this. I think I should do that. And like because I know like he has a broad experience or a broad understanding of how human being functions, or how like they think, or the certain like different contingencies that can happen if they do this or they do that. any advice he would give me, I would take. I wouldn't really take it as him being controlling. I just take it as him more being like a second brain, because he didn't make like my uncle mentioned something like two brains are better than one. He's like a second brain to me. Like he's done that extra work that my brain cannot do for me.
Makes sense. So it sounds to me, Dominic, that this controllingness at least hasn't been perceived by your brother that kind of way. It's more of someone who is an advisor, someone who can give intelligent points of view that are worth thinking about. And in your pursuit of truth, that gives you a certain amount of wisdom that you can share with other people. So I guess what would be a good example of that side of you that you found to be, or has been perceived, say, by your sister to be more controlling?
Well, my sister, she's an INFP, but she says I sometimes talk at people. I don't talk to them. Like sometimes when I'm going. So it's like I have to. So it's like I'm either very much a listener or I'm talking. And so she put it as like I talk at people, and sometimes I try to like get people to think a particular. Well, she sees it. I think it's because she does not use TI, so she does not get it when I'd want her to be consistent or to like have stricter definitions or anything like that. So she sees that as like you're just trying to control how I think. You're just trying to control how I work. So maybe that's also where it's coming from, because it's like it depends on who's receiving it. Because not everyone experiences me at controlling. I actually think I'm pretty chill. I let people be as they are, but other people like, and my INTP friend, well, he's an INTP. He likes to, be free and do his own thing. So he can see me as like just trying to impose my own. He tends to think he thinks I'm creative and perceptive and intelligent, but he also thinks I'm very simple-minded sometimes in how I approach things. Like I'm too simple and how I think about things. So it's like, in fact, I learned how to think the way I'm thinking now from imitating him. I learned how to like, okay, let me approach things how he would approach it, or how would he mind this and stuff. And that helped me a lot too.
And what do you mean by simple-minded? Because you come across as a very intelligent person. So what is this simple-mindedness that he sees or perceives?
I guess more like, I guess the best way to put it is, it's the difference between speaking in terms of aphorisms and speaking in terms of elaborating something. And I used to speak in terms of aphorisms. I used to be very, very good at writing aphorisms and think that's how, like, very concise statements, encapsulations of things and stuff. So he tends to see that as like, oh, that's too simplistic, or it's not exactly that. Or he tends to be like, well, there's also this angle, or, well, there's more complexity going on here. So I feel like talking to him has put me in a habit of like, I have to consider complexity instead of trying to simplify everything into just one main way of going at things.
Right. And do you mind, is that something you've noticed as well? This tendency towards almost ultra concise aphorism rather than sort of the long stream of facts.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's very interesting. That's kind of the opposite of what I had been wondering about from our previous interview. But I think the reason I reached that was because I think it's that lack of self-awareness leads to a similar effect in what one would normally see in an IEE. But it's not that you're an IEE, it sounds to me. If anything, that criticism of simple-mindedness sounds to me much more like actually an orientation towards introverted logic and away from extroverted logic. An IEE would not be accused of the aphoristic thinking. They're the ones who like to give lots of different explanations where everything depends on each situation and they can't quite tie it together. In your case, an aphorism is a tying together at the expense of talking about the specifics in each situation. And so there's a lack of practical wisdom in favor of theoretical wisdom, you could say. It's the wisdom of the aphorism, the saying, rather than, what do you actually do in this situation, taking into account the nuances and the particulars of here and now.
Yeah, I think Napoleon put it very well in terms of, he was like, for me, it's not about the mere elegance of the thought. It's just more about the force of the thought, how the force the thought has. And that's usually how I used to think in terms of like, I used to actually feel an actual force of pushing, of thrusting forward in the front of my frontal cortex whenever I was thinking or speaking. Like there was actually like this movement outwards. And that's one of the reasons why I like Miyamoto Musashi. I like Sun Tzu. I like Goethe because they're very good at aphorisms. They're very good at tying together complex things into very simple ways of like receiving things that are very accessible for other people. And that's what I push for at my best.
That makes sense. Now, going back to what you said was more about being controlling, but sounded more like talking at people. It sounds to me less so of an extroverted sensation orientation and more of just being a logical type with not very strong ethics in terms of in socionics, not ethics in terms of not being a nice person. I mean, in just in terms of picking up on the mood and how to adapt your explanation to the needs of the person. And that being something which you perhaps have grown in more over time, but you didn't have much when you were younger. But what did come first were your insights.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So this is suggesting to me more likely an NT type, intuitive, logical type. It's suggesting to me within that an introverted logic type rather than a extroverted logic type. So more about alpha NT rather than gamma NT. Now, alpha and gamma are about these quadra values. The idea of alpha is that they are a type that wants to come to an understanding of how the world fits together. They're very much about understanding the underlying laws and principles behind how things are meant to work. And to create almost an aphorism, create a theory to explain how everything fits together with as few principles as possible. The idea is that only a few principles are needed to explain almost everything. That's kind of what they're trying to get towards, that sort of crisp understanding. Where gamma NT, right, intuitive logical type that's in gamma, they are far more likely to say, no theory is going to be perfect. Instead, it's doing what allows us to maintain our independence from the world. What tools can we enable us to do that? How can we achieve things in the long run strategically? So not really about understanding how the world fits together so much as seeing and predicting the trends in terms of where things are going and how they can use that. So I think much more in that alpha area. However, as you say, there is this idea of keeping things open is in serving the pursuit of the truth rather than kept in for its own sake. Now, that is very interesting. I'm wondering, Dominic, are there any, you talked about you being perhaps a bit more sort of outspoken, a bit more stubborn at times in your viewpoints. Is that right to say? Have you had a certain stubbornness, certain absoluteness in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. And does it mean that it was quite hard for you to sort of change your mind when presented with factual evidence? Or is that a different sort of stubbornness?
It was more of if you made a good argument, like if what you said was coherent or reconfigured how I thought about things and understood things, then I would accept it. Like one of the catalysts for me originally losing my faith was me realizing the transcendental argument for the existence of God wasn't a good one. Like I talked to my ITP friend about it, and then he pointed out you can just reject the premises, and that had never occurred to me as like something you could do.
Yeah.
Like I always thought, like, well, the premises are established and they seem legit, then you can just hold on to it and use it. And also dawned on me something that dawned on David Foster Wallace. He put as like one of the difficulties in learning is that something can be logically valid but still not sound. Like the premises can be false. So if the premises are accurate, however that's determined, and the reasoning is sound, then valid, then I'm very easy to convince. You just have to make sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. That's the idea there that it can be difficult to change your mind, for other people to change your mind, until they find the key to your understanding, at which point your understanding unlocks and you become once again open to a new understanding.
Yes.
Okay. That's very useful. So I guess when I was talking before, and you said you actually prefer to impose to some degree on your surroundings to make things make things the way you want them to be. And I said that's also quite different to pursuing truth, because if you impose on surroundings, you're basically creating the truth rather than understanding the truth. You are making the situation such as you want it, and that then becomes the truth. But that doesn't seem to me to be what you're doing so much.
It's
So
more like
yeah.
It's more like first I have to understand what is, then I have to interact with it and change it. Like I remember I put it to one of my INFJ friends that I may become idealistic, and only because I'm realistic. My realism serves my idealism. Like I have to know what's real, and then after that I can try to change it or see or align with it. Like either change or alignment. That's usually what I'm after, and that's where I emphasize adaptability, because adaptability also requires moving things around and making things happen and stuff like that. And that requires you being in tune with what's going on around you.
Mm. And why do you want to change things?
Because I don't like how different things are done. I don't like how things are run. And I feel like there's probably a better way to go at it. Like recently I got really into economics, and I got a biography of Marx and read different like Wealth of Nations, Capital, what the heck's that guy's name? I don't remember, but different books trying to understand the nature of economics and seeing if maybe there's a better system that can help people or capitalize on generosity, encourage community competence, things like that will help push people through situations and help people manage, and also how this ties into sustainability and maintain the ecology and all these different things. So it's like, I feel like the way we're doing things is not optimal. We're not doing the best that we can do in the world for ourselves or for the world, and it's going to hurt us in the long run. So that's why I want to change things.
I see. Okay. And Jamon, have you seen any actions from Dominic or Kwame in terms of enacting some of his ideas to create a positive change?
Yeah, I actually have like I will say I'm a prime example because so I'm trying to join this organization back in college, and it involves a lot of active thinking, like picking out what is actually being said and knowing how to react towards it. And like I had a problem with that a little bit because I was in the military prior, so anything obedience to all orders without any questions. So like anything they said, I would do it, and they would be like, no, like you have to like understand, you got to pick out what we're actually trying to say, what to do. So like he helped me more like trying to have him be an active thinker, because like he has more understanding of like what a person is saying, what the straight like dissecting what a person actual message instead of like just doing everything the person's saying.
Okay. What have you noticed in Dominic that haven't been so, you as a little brother, I get you're the little brother, he's the big brother. You can feel, you come across as, being very capable in many sorts of ways that you can learn from. What are some of the things?
Please hold on.
I'm just someone's posting spam and get rid of that person.
Okay. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, he'll come back. He'll come back. My mom is asking him something.
Okay, no worries. I was going to. I was interested in the need to be tough, the need to be more aggressive and assertive. What are some? Can you think of any examples of that, of being more assertive, of being more tough?
Well, typically I don't tend to assert myself. I'm more like my very presence dispels conflict. Like I remember one time, me and my friend and his friends that had visited were walking throughout our neighborhood, and then all of a sudden we got jumped. Like some kids in the neighborhood, they came to fight us. It was like I don't know, maybe like 12 kids, and it was only like 4 of us.
Yeah.
And they started beating him and their friends up, but because they knew it was me, none of them touched me. No one did anything to me. Like everyone stayed away from me. It was really weird. I don't even understand it. But so just situations like that. I used to create situations where, because I'm already strong and fast, and I already have a reputation for strength and all these different things and stuff. that no one will mess with me. So that's my approach, where it's like, it's kind of like the martial arts approach, where it's like you learn martial arts not to fight, but to not fight. Like
More defensive.
Yeah, it's more defensive. Like, it's not for the sake of starting fights. It's not for the sake of
Yes.
inviting fights either. It's for the sake of preventing fights. It's like, if like people know the U.S. has a very strong military and has nuclear weapons, so it's like you're not going to threaten them in a way that will let them release their nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So that's more of my policy towards things.
Right. I see. So I guess it's interesting that, because there isn't anything from what you did necessarily that would cause people to not pick a fight with you compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm interested there in why people would know not to try with you. It's because you have shown your formidability in the past.
Yeah. Like,
Right.
I showed that I was very fast, and I showed that I was very strong, and they also knew I used to train. So all of that gave them an impression that you don't mess with this guy. And then on the other side too, I was also very kind. So they also knew that I'm not somebody who's like, you should just start conflicts with for no reason, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it's just like, I cultivated both sides, where it's like one side has strength to defend and prevent fights, the other side has kindness to soften people towards you, so they won't want to have a problem with you. And those have been my main two policies for how to interact with people when it comes to conflict.
All right, thank you. So Jamon, is that something you've noticed, that Dominic is quite a tough guy if he needs to be?
Yes. I would say really yes. I remember when we were younger, we used to live next to the woods, and I would like sit down and watch him physically train. Like, he used to train like a monk. He used to train like an actual monk. He used to like try to like iron, you know what iron training is?
Iron body training, yeah.
So iron body training is like the kind of it's like a technique where you harden your bones, so you like basically create little chips on your bones, so that they put over. So like, he used to do that a lot. He used to do it on his head. So like, when he was younger, he didn't really like have hair, because he wanted to like train his head too. He's really tough. Like, he played football too, and he had this kind of like competitive strength, like spirit that I started like obtaining it the same way when I joined the military. Like, I never wanted to be like people. Like, I didn't want people to look at me like, yeah, I'm gonna mess with that guy. Like, I didn't want to be messed with. I think like it trickled down from him.
Okay, thank you. So interesting. So yeah, that toughness is and I remember you were inspired by things like Dragon Ball Z to become this sort of very sort of strong figure.
Yeah,
right.
Together.
You actually then went out and did it. You then actually did that sort of training. And what was there any examples where you actually demonstrated that strength and capability in a fight situation?
No, I usually avoided fights, and like I wanted to like officially train and spar with people, but I never got the chance. That's the irony of my life, that training, that I never got to use it. The only time I ever got into a boxing match, it was with a guy who actually knew how to box, and that was the first time I ever boxed, and he whooped me. It was kind of funny. Because I did not know how to move. I didn't know the footwork. So I was just like, I could see the punches coming at me in slow motion, and I could dodge, but it's like, then he'd do a compound, like he'd do a combo, and then he'd get me. So it was just like, he hit me in the eye 5 times. But yeah.
Right. Okay. No, fair enough. So we're seeing someone who actually does have someone who has. Actually, one thing I asked you is, how long were you doing this monk stuff? How long did you keep that up for?
From age 11 to 15.
4 years.
Yeah.
4 years of doing that and why did you stop it again? Was it because of your diagnosis?
Well, in high school, I started getting into choir, and I got into theater. So I started focusing more on that. And also, I was doing mission trips, like going to Habitats for Humanity, like building mountain trails, building houses and stuff like that. So I was like doing different things like that. I was getting involved into a different scene, and I was shifting away from my warrior mindset towards a more social entertainment mindset. and I was thinking of myself as potentially becoming an entertainer. And then when that didn't pan out, I eventually became more of an intellectual and a creative. And then I started losing my abilities even more.
Right. But that's also a very interesting point. So it sounds to me you've had a number of different phases.
Yeah.
Where an idea took you. That's an interesting idea. Like I want to become a monk. No, now I want to become an entertainer. Now I want to become a intellectual. And
I mean, it wasn't necessarily an idea. It was more of a general thing of wanting to be my best and wanting to, I guess, a part of me also wanting status, like the male desire for status and
right,
higher appraisal and stuff. So it's like whatever I saw myself as like, this was my best, because I saw the entertainment side as me not being authentic. I saw the warrior side as me being true to myself. Honestly, I felt like that was me mostly, and then the intellectual side was a new development that also felt aligned with the warrior side, because I also had an intellectual side when I was a kid. I used to when I was 7, I used to learn chemistry and set theory, amongst other things, and mythology, and then I got into philosophy when I was in 5th grade, reading Kant in middle school, things like that, and learning apologetics and theology throughout middle school and high school. So the intellectual side was always there, but the warrior side was more important to me. The intellectual side was for my existential things and for me to know how to orient myself and also to sharpen my mind. So, but the entertainment side was more like, I guess I was fulfilling what people saw of me. I noticed I got praise for that. I noticed that people appreciated me more if I could entertain them. And so that's where it was.
Okay. So essentially you tie it to status. There's like a strength side in status in terms of actually being more like a monk, being someone who can actually use martial arts effectively and be a toughened person. There's also status there in terms of getting approval from people, from entertaining others. And now it's about being more of a sort of a source of wisdom to other people. And it's saying does that status desire continue now in terms of you being an intellectual?
I have an ego tick sometimes where it's just like, oh, I want to be seen as smart or seen as wise and whatnot, because that'll make me look better. But overall, I genuinely want to help people because I feel like that's the right thing to do. And lots of people need help. I feel lots of compassion for people, where in terms of what they're struggling with and like the meaningless they may experience and things like that. So it comes from a genuine place. But I'm not going to lie that sometimes that desire for status kicks in, or the desire for attention or whatever kicks in. That's still a part of me.
Okay. Jamal, I got a question for you. In this, this with your multifaceted brother, right? What things has he never been very good at that you've noticed?
You'll have to give me a minute on that. I gotta think.
Anger management? I don't know.
No, not really. When you were younger, but you actually got in the habit you can take down your own. So I wouldn't say that. I would just say culture problems. That's probably it.
Culture problems.
Being more into being he's my brother, but if he meets my friend group, they will look at him and be like, they're gonna look at him look back. They're gonna be okay. I feel like he when it comes to more culture wise, that's where he's not really if he doesn't know you, he wouldn't try to approach you. That's what I think he is. If he doesn't if he's not familiar with you or familiar with how you think or how you move, he won't really associate himself with you or talk to you or even give you a time of his day. So I feel how he is. He's not really, he's social to a certain extent.
Yeah. You're saying there's a certain, that's because there are two slightly different things you sort of may have implied there. One is a certain aloofness on his part. Right? If Kwame Adon doesn't know what someone is in relation to him, he doesn't necessarily approach them. He sort of keeps himself to himself from these people. That's one thing. The other is more the way he talks, the way he comes across could cause others to maybe back off, perhaps.
Yeah.
So which one of those, or is it both of them?
It's both of them. Mostly both of them.
Okay, fine. So saying it's both, that it's Kwame isn't inclined to ingratiate himself into a group of people, that he doesn't already know, but also when he talks to a group of people outside those who know him well personally already, he may not have the desired effect on them.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. So that's suggesting to me weaker extroverted ethics. So I guess, Dominic, in terms of that entertainment side of you, that ability to sort of, or that attempt to make people laugh and smile, do you say that was quite successful, or was that not so successful?
It was successful, and it was the main way I connected to people, honestly. Because aside from that, if I couldn't connect to you intellectually or at a deep level, then it's like I guess I can make you laugh, or I can make you enjoy something, like me singing for you or dancing or something like that, or writing you a poem or writing you a song. So just entertainment was a way of connecting to people, like feeling, because I did not know how to connect to them at a deeper level in any other way.
And who were you trying to connect with?
Well, girls, other guys, because in my guy group, it's like unless I was joking around and making people laugh, I generally did not. I generally didn't feel like we were all of the same mindset. Like a lot of guys I grew up with, like, how do I put it? They were not very wise, and they were not very, I guess, deep. So naturally, there was this rift. There was this like, I'm not on the same wavelength, and the questions I was considering, while since I was a kid growing up, were always very heavy and very complex for me. So I felt like I couldn't talk to them about that, and so things like that.
I'd also like to explore this loss of strength, this loss of capability, and for one, in the way it has been described to me so far, is that you were diagnosed with this condition, and that caused you to. It's not exactly explained how that caused you to lose your strength and your formidableness. So how did that work? How did you lose your strength?
Well, as I was noticing a mental decline in my focus and stuff,
Right.
I was also noticing a physical decline. Like I started losing greater physical dexterity. Like I noticed I couldn't play trumpet and tap my foot at the same time. It was really weird. And I gradually lost the ability to exert myself. And even now, like my posture is more introverted and withdrawn instead of outward and vibrant and strong, because it's really weird, but my condition hurts my mind whenever I try to put on a posture of strength. It's as if it deliberately came on me to weaken me. It feels as if it came on me to ruin my life, like to just make me the opposite of how I naturally am at my best. So that's kind of how I feel like constantly, where it's like I feel more even though I have a gentleness to me, I feel weak right now. I feel there's a greater weakness and a greater timidity, and the world feels more threatening to me now, since I feel very vulnerable and not as capable or mentally sharp and in tune as I used to be.
Jamon, what have you noticed in terms of a decline in your brother?
I would say more of a more like this is a physical aspect. Like he's always been smart. It's more like he used to, cause like when I said when he used to train, like he used to be bigger, like he used to be really athletic, and now it's just like he's rather not like it's not as much athletic as he used to be. I could tell, I could see it. He's like really tired most of the time.
Yeah,
like he wished he could do the stuff he could have done when he was younger, or like he wants to get like that kind of like the military we say oomph. He wants to get that oomph back. Yeah, he would want it back, but it's more like now it's like it's really hard for him to obtain it again, because like he has so much that goes on in his head and so much distractions that also kind of tied into it that doesn't really like help him exert like that kind of like ability.
Thank you. And how have you when Dominic was in that entertainment stage, how are you able to balance that ability to reach out and entertain others with what you said before about someone who may have been a bit more aloof, may not have actually interacted with many people, and may have perhaps put people off at times?
So are you like asking if like when he was more like into entertainment would it like influence like would it have a better way of him socializing with like people?
Yeah, how did you notice any change there in terms of how he came across?
When he was more on the entertainment side, wasn't I wasn't really like home. Like I had moved to a different country. Like I
Okay.
moved to Ghana for 6 years. So when he was like, I only was around him when like he was more like training, like more hard. And when I came back, like I could say when I left to Ghana for 6 years, I came back. Through those 6 years, I came back like I knew my brother, but he was a whole different person. I could see like there was a whole different change. They used to like he changed because even the way he talked, like when I knew him, he only spoke English and our native language. Now
Yeah.
he speaks like our native language and French and then something else. He's more like I'll say advanced. I'll say advanced. He's more like he advanced himself. But I could also see like he's also not doing the stuff that he was saying that he was doing. He was younger. That I could tell that he had more. He enjoyed more, or did more. I could tell like he wants to do that, or like he wants to get back to that. But like right now, his focus is on this and that. And even if his focus is not on this, he has distractions distractions that don't help him, or that cannot like doesn't allow him to like get to that point. Like it's like more like let's say like it's like a sniper. If a sniper is like in front of a rifle, like if a sniper has a sniper in his hand, like he's about to shoot, if you scream in his ear, you like you just distracted him. He might get off shot. But like if it's all calm, collected, and cool, he's focused, he can execute. I feel like he's more like it's like he wants to execute like this task, or he wants to like get back to like the way he used to be, but it's like so much that goes on. It's not in his head, but also in his life. He has also all these kind of little influences that like distract him from obtaining that like objective.
So that's interesting. That the key, if you were to extract the mojo or oomph of younger Dominic compared to present Dominic, that mojo could be described as that sort of cool, calm focus and
like he was more like his life was more scheduled. Like I'll say more scheduled. There was no like the pattern was always like straight. There was no like offset road set on something on the side like distracting or something that was influencing it. Like if he wanted to go from A to Z, it was always A to Z. It wouldn't go to A, then to the Greek alphabet, back to American alphabet. Like it wouldn't go wayward. It was always a straight fixed thing.
Yeah, there was no contextualizing.
Yeah, but now it's just like 1 second he's saying counting numbers 1, 2, 3. Then by the time he realizes that he's now saying the alphabet. By the time he realizes that he's speaking like singing a song. By the time he realizes he's doing this, like it's so much things that I go on, and it's a little time frame that distracts him.
Right. So that's very interesting. So this is why we see, this is perhaps this idea of this change that we're seeing in you, Dominic. It's this earlier person, very disciplined, very structured, very A to Z, still not at ease with all different kinds of people, but was very much about discipline, focusing on something you wanted to do and getting through it in a very sort of organized, structured way. And now we see someone who's actually quite distractible, who suddenly things come into your head and suddenly you're there, whereas before you were here. And in a way, you're trying to get back to that sort of very structured, focused person you used to be. And it might be perhaps something to do with schizophrenia or some other condition that has caused you to be thrown off that structured way of being. It's like something is impinging on your original state.
Yes, like let me describe to you my schizophrenia. It actually feels like there's another agent controlling my body and controlling my thoughts.
Right.
Like actually palpably. Like it's actually like I remember the last time when I was at the hospital, it felt like somebody would grab my thought substance and change it. If I try to say my name is Dominic, it make me say my name is Cats like this. Like just it could literally change my thoughts. So that's what I constantly have going on with me. Whereas like my physiology and my psychology is not my own. I don't have control over my control. So as a result, I can't employ myself and motivate myself to do things that I used to do and used to love doing. And I feel like I'm off. I don't feel like I'm me most of the time.
Right. Makes sense. Thank you. So, and when you were younger, when you were in this sort of more empowered state, were you more open-minded, or were you actually someone who could come across as quite closed-minded?
I could seem closed-minded. I remember one of my friends told me that I'm highly opinionated, but it was more like my mind was more like a fortress. Like just like it's very difficult to get in, but when you're in, you're taken care of.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Taken care of how?
Like I will nurture you. Like if you give me an idea that I can finally accept, I'll take care of that idea. I'll look at it, I'll examine it, like I'll let it develop, I'll let it go through its natural process of developing and decaying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If it's not like I remember when you asked me like what annoys me about people or whatnot, I said perspective and stuff. That's more recent. In the past, and even now, I notice in real time, that's where the self-awareness comes in. I notice at work, I'm constantly getting annoyed by people not having common sense, people not paying attention, people not doing things that are obvious, people like not being efficient. Like I'm constantly being annoyed by that. And I'm constantly complaining about people like just not thinking, people seeming
Not
stupid.
being active thinkers.
And not being active thinkers, not initiating, not taking care of things, not helping this whole. So those are actually what annoys me. I was actually thinking about this. Like I was like, I need to reflect more on myself because I don't reflect often. So I was just like, and I was paying attention to myself. I was like, yeah, that's what I react to. That's mainly what annoys me.
Right.
Okay. Now I know where I get it from. Because I am the exact same way. Because we're more the straight to the point answer. Like we're not gonna give you we're gonna tell you what it is, and like that's how it is. And the moment you start asking questions that are like irrelevant or don't make sense, I'm just gonna look at you and go, "This is common sense needs to be applied."
Yeah.
Like if I say that, if you ask me, it's like a scenario. Like if I'm eating a dish from a country I know nothing of and don't know what's in the dish, and you ask me what's in the dish, and I tell you I don't know, but you continue to ask me what's in the dish, I'm just gonna look at you and go, "How am I gonna know? If it's not from my country, it's not my dish. I already told you I don't know." But you're still asking what's in the dish. At that point, you're making me mad. Like you're not probably common sense because I've already answered your question.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like for another example is like, I don't know what to eat, but I'm hungry. What do you want to eat? You say you don't know, and you ask me what I want to eat. I already said I don't know I'm hungry, but I don't know what to eat. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
You just asked me the same question I already answered.
Yeah, people don't follow the logical implications of things. Like they just miss. Like it's already contained within the situation. It's already contained in the statement, but they don't get what's entailed by the statements you make, and that's annoying.
Right. Okay. So what you say is that's enough. Once you said that thing, if people can start re-questioning what you've already stated, that's going to be annoying to you because, like, you've already said this. Let's move on and accept what I've just said, and let's do what logically entails from that, which is, don't ask me again what I want to eat. I don't know what I want to eat. Give me a suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Let me see what else I can ask. So, I guess what I'm interested in is what caused you to want to learn so many different languages?
Different languages offer different ways of thinking. Also, curiosity, honestly, just mainly curiosity.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an interesting part, this curiosity drive. Because on the one hand, you could be quite strong-minded in terms of your opinions and your views on certain things. You could have your mind change once the right suggestion was given. But you had a reputation for being perhaps quite closed-minded at times. So where does this curiosity come from?
I mean, it's the same thing that led. I don't know where it comes from. I guess it's like the big five openness dimension of personality, where I've always been intellectually and experientially open, where it's just like I'm willing to kind of try anything just to get the experience or to get a sense of it. So it's like I remember I got in, like my mom had these books from high school and college when she used to work at a high school as a janitor, and she'd bring these books home and tell me to read. So I was like, I'd go through them and I'd read some of the books in the library when I was a kid. So it was just cares about the world, cares about life, cares about people, just wanting to know.
Okay.
Basically, like trying to know how everything really functions.
Yeah, wanting to know how everything functions. He got it. Yeah, how perceptive.
So trialing how everything functions.
Yeah.
Okay. You see. So giving everything a try, seeing how it works, so it fits together into, and the idea of how everything functions, was that then a desire then to tie that all together into a grand explanation? Or was it more about, no, in this situation, this is what I know about, and that situation, I know what that is about?
Grand picture, so I can know how to act. It's for the sake of action. Like when I put in terms of, I want to know what movie I'm in so I can know what action to be. Like, is this the Hindu movie where it's Brahma and there's reincarnation? Or is this the Christian movie where you die and there's heaven and hell, or you become resurrected? Like, I want to know, like, because that'll tell me, that all impacts, like, what you think about death impacts what you think about life and how you live your life in light of what you think about death. So that's usually why I want to know, like, what movie am I in, so I can know how to behave, I can know how to act, I can know what to pursue, what's not worth pursuing. Because life is about, a lot of life involves attention, and it's like, what do you give your attention to? So it's like you have to be very selective. So I want to know, like, what's worthwhile.
Right. So that's interesting, because if that's the case, the precondition for action is knowing what the rules are, is knowing how it all fits together. And so this act of curiosity sounds like a means of acquiring the information you need to know how you can then act.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of different to curiosity in terms of wanting to find out for the sake of finding out. It's more, I mean, like,
that's there too, but it's, how do I put it? They're different. They can be coupled together, but I can also take them separately. But generally, they're coupled together. Generally, it's curiosity for the sake of action. Other times, it's just curiosity for the sake of coming to one great insight, one great understanding, wanting some sort of mental satisfaction.
Mental satisfaction of it all coming together and having an understanding.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So that's also interesting. What I find is, now, another point is in this exploration of your sort of your discipline, of your focus, of your calm, which enabled you to train to be almost monk-like and acquire this quite athletic body, you could say. I can't see any clear examples of you actually going in and actually asserting yourself with others and making them do what you want them to do. That doesn't seem to me to be what's come out of this exploration here. Or maybe I'm wrong. What are there any examples that come to mind for you, Jamon, where Dominic has actually been more actually capable of being more authoritarian? Or is it just that he just has well-formed views that can be hard to change at times?
I don't. It's kind of hard, like, to elaborate. I mostly agree with. I don't know. I don't know, cause he is. I would say, like, I have a good I'm really observant. Like, I want to look at a person, see how the person thinks, how the person moves, and I want to understand how the person is first. But out of everybody, he's the only person I have not figured out yet. He's the only one, because, like, it's just, he's like that one kid that if you give him, like, you know how kids, you always give him a little toy where you put up the shapes. Like, he's the one kid that can put all the shapes in the exact spot, but he's also that same kid that would want to force a circles piece into a square piece.
Yeah, like, that's a great way to put it.
that's how he is. So it's like okay, it's like, I don't know. I actually don't know. Like, I don't really know how to explain it. He's just like, it's more. I'm just trying to understand my brother. Like, he is what's the word? He's like an intricate equation. Like, 1 + 1 can be 2, but also 1 can be 0 for him.
So what I think is worth doing is going through some of these possibilities together. Okay. So if we think introverted logic, I think makes the most sense. Trying to, the facts, just knowing all the facts is not enough. It's about integrating that to clear axioms upon which you can then act, upon which you can understand the world in that crisp, aphoristic way, which allows you to then know what you actually do in this world. So that I think is clear. So the next part is then what are the potential types we can run through. So there are two types which lead with introverted logic. That is the LII, the analyst, and the LSI, the inspector or enforcer, you could say. Now, the difference is, the reason I say those two rather than say an SLE or an ILE, which have introverted logic in the second position, right, is that it seems to me as though introverted logic is very much the focus. It exists for itself. The other things serve the finding of the truth, but also extroverted ethics, the ability to affect others with your emotional states, the ability to change other people's emotional states, the ability to come across well to others, etc., is something which continues to elude. And you went through a phase which was not observed by your brother, because your brother was in Ghana at the time, of reaching out to others, of being able to try to entertain them more. But it seems to me that continues to be something which your brother perceives as being, if there are any weak point to you, still being your weak point. What I also would suggest is that, say, ILE as a possibility, intuitive logical extrovert, the problem there is that they have as their suggestive function, their weak point, introverted sensation, which is about that sort of calm management of the details, maintaining processes and discipline. Now, for you to have become someone who's learned, multiple languages and have trained to become essentially a monk, well, I say monk, but become a far more physical specimen, suggests someone who creates processes of that are quite detailed and intricate and follows them through. And this seems to be the thing which you've lost more recently. So that makes me wonder about ILE. I think that, if anything, ILE would develop the extroverted ethics more clearly than the introverted sensation. So I'm wondering instead about LSI and LII. So the possibilities there are this. LII is a type which starts with a focus on truth, of finding how things fit together, what the underlying structures are, and they're very much inclined to turn over these structures and to look at things from different angles, from different possibilities. And they tend to take quite a while to think things through in that sort of way. They're not inclined to then act assertively, because they are quite content actually to turn ideas over and think them through over time. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is the LSI. The LSI is one where extroverted sensation supports introverted logic. So again, it's about a truth, but this time they're quite assertive in setting out what they have come to believe the truth is, and they don't tend to be very open to alternatives. For them, it's about reducing any of the ambiguity to certainty. So they're the ones who establish and create certainty. Now, it could be that you are an LSI who has been thrown off of that ability to create certainty by your condition. Yeah. That you may have been an LSI when you were younger, maybe you've lost that. But what makes me wonder about LSI is this sort of broad-reaching curiosity. Now, an LSI can be curious where it fits into the channel they've decided upon as being how they establish their clarity. And they can investigate things in quite a good deal of depth for that purpose. But they aren't inclined to go and look into something just because it could be interesting. They're more like, no, this is the truth. This is what I need to follow through. It's an LII that's more likely to be exploring in all sorts of different areas in order to refine their truth as much as possible. So I'm wondering, which of the two is sounding more like you?
I sound more like an LSI who learned how to be an LII from experience. Because I realized that the world is incredibly complex, and there's so many things. And I've also made friendships that have impacted me and changed my orientation. Like I'm friends with an INTJ and an INTP
Yeah.
who are both very intelligent and very creative, and they have impacted sort of like how I approach things, what I take into consideration. Because if not, I naturally tend towards closure. I
Yeah.
naturally tend towards, so I'm always, so interacting with them kind of like leads me to like, okay, I have to be in a situation of contraction and expansion, or inhaling and exhaling, where I have to take things in and bring things out, so I can be more organic and dynamic instead of being what's starting mainly like, it's just a process of growth. And as a result, I've cultivated a more organic logic, and some of it is due to Hegel's influence too. So a lot of the stuff with the perspectives and possibilities, all these different things are learned. They're recent. If I hadn't gone through my poetic phase and my Goethe phase and Shakespeare and Joyce, like getting into literature and all these different things, I would not be this way. I would probably still seem very dogmatic and closed off. I probably wouldn't be dogmatic, but I'd be stubborn. Uh, okay. Okay, cool. So I think that's what's going on. Like, yeah. I hope that made sense.
Where it doesn't quite make sense is in terms of this extrovert intuition is meant to be for an LSI a blind spot. It's not really meant to be something they gain an appreciation of.
By the way, what's LSI in MBTI terms?
So it's kind of, it's not really like an ISTP. It's also got, it's kind of a mix between ISTP, ISTJ, maybe a bit of ESTJ thrown in. It is meant to be a type that's known as being the most stubborn and inclined to be quite clear and set in their views, but also the type which brings absolute certainty and clarity to situations. There is no room for doubt when you're with an LSI. They will make sure doubt is removed from the picture. And for them, alternative possibilities are seen as a way of distracting from the creation of that certainty. So it's less of something where, oh, they've learned how to be more open from other people, and that's actually something they've embraced and taken on. That's kind of the antithesis of what they're meant to be about, which is the establishing of that clarity. So this is where I'm wondering, in terms of you being someone who's grown to be more open-minded in your perspectives. And I'm thinking, would that be what an LSI would do? If anything, what an LSI would do in terms of their growth is discover what is truly meaningful, what is the direction for them to go, because they're meant to be a type that's very go on. What are you saying?
That's what I'm seeking, and
right.
As a result, because I can't find it, I have to keep things open, because if not, I might miss a detail. Because for me, I don't consider necessarily possibilities. It's more like details, more like I haven't considered this idea in detail. So it's just like, if I miss this logic, or if I miss this intricacy to it, or miss how these things fit together, I might come to a wrong understanding, and then my whole entire thing is messed up. Next thing you know, I'm disoriented.
Right. So you're saying, rather than it being a general open-mindedness towards, having your mind changed, exploring different sorts of possibilities, it's more that you have a very meticulous and thorough way of examining things in detail to get to certainty.
Yes.
Right. And the thing that has gotten in the way of that in recent years has been the schizophrenia, and how that's sort of been like an interruptive or disruptive second voice that is throwing off that meticulous clarity reaching process.
Yes.
Okay. That is very interesting. We were thinking about IEE last time. Well, I was thinking IE last time. Like me, I think I've become a completely different person. But now it sounds to me like it's complete opposite type. And okay, some things which line up here. This idea of, from understanding the rules upon which things are governed, to being able to act with a desire to actually create some kind of world change. That's very different to what a Delta would be about, which is about self-development, about growing in terms of oneself to be the best one can be. The betas, LSI, SLE, and also the IEI and EIE, the NFJs and the STPs, you could say, in broad MBTI correlative terms, they are world changers. They are about how can we impact upon and change the world to match up with the truth that we have uncovered. And so these types are influential or influence seeking. Status, as you said, also can be a big thing for them. The idea of your standing in the society is an important thing to them. For them to be high status rather than low status is a driver. So these are some things that you've mentioned which kind of fit in. The adaptability, now that could be perhaps more of a, I just want to be able to survive in the challenges that are thrown at me. It's not necessarily an ongoing, how can I continue to grow and develop? It's just to become tough and steel yourself to then be able to create this sort of more world change. Is that fitting together and making sense for you?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. And so, yeah, so that world change side is something you are looking towards. That's something you want, yes? Or is that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So that is fitting more around beta. And that will explain why extroverted ethics is the weakest part. Introverted intuition, this pursuit of some sort of transcendent meaning as something you've grown towards over time. So you starting off when you're younger as being more about the actions you take, the focusing, the training, the steeling your body, as it were, but balancing that with a certain calm and detail awareness, rather than being a sort of rather than being a trouble starter. You always actually had a sort of calm focus and almost considered approach to things. So you had the capacity for aggression, but for you it was about finding the right time to use that rather than just going out and starting fights, and having sort of discipline and focus in terms of how you then trained yourself up, like a monk, you could say, or some sort of agent where you only use your abilities when the crisis demands it of you. But then this growth towards trying to find enlightenment, trying to find this deeper, more meaningful thing that would elevate you, this sort of intellectual journey you're undergoing. And at the same time, the development of the schizophrenia, which usually happens in adolescence, which has become a sort of disruptive effect on that natural process. Okay, so that sounds like it's all clicking together and making sense.
Yes.
Okay, I think LSI perhaps is the best fit then. I think assuming that what would be perceived as extroverted intuition, in terms of having different interests, in terms of the one hand, the developing of yourself, in terms of becoming a monk. 2, this entertainment phase. 3, this more intellectual development phase. It's not really actually chasing lots of different interests. Rather, it's that fundamental understanding of the truth and really being thorough in whatever's required to get you to that understanding of the truth, while also toughening yourself up to be someone who can actually enact that truth effectively. And also slightly, it can be a bit of a sucker for people's approval and flattery, perhaps, at times, which is where the entertainment pursuit could come in. Is that, you're laughing, is that ringing true?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we got it then. I think we may have got it. What are some of the comments? I know this has gone on for longer, but this was a tricky one. What are people saying? Let me see. I think other people have said LSI. All right. There we go. What are people saying? LSI harmonizing, someone has suggested. I'm not one for subtypes in general. I'm not of that view. Usually when I've encountered someone who actually who's been typed as an LSI harmonizing, they usually turn out to be some sort of SLI. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, some people are suggesting that they can't see ESC being your dual, which would be LII. No, fair enough. Some people are suggesting SLI. I don't think SLI would make sense in terms of this actually being receptive towards flattery. With people trying to connect with people in general rather than specific people, and really liking the positive compliments you're getting from people from trying to, write things and do things that lead to positive responses. SLIs aren't so interested in that. They're very clear in terms of who they are, what they're about, living their personal sincerity. They're not. That's not something they're very, very interested in doing, instead of just reaching out and appealing to people in general. Instead, it's very much about forming certain one-to-one relationships. The status thing, quite right from Marius there. Marius is suggesting that an SLI wouldn't seek so much status but inner peace. Exactly. Very much. Their point of focus is introverted sensation, with introverted ethics being their mobilizing functions.
What's an SLI in MBTI terms again?
This is kind of like an ISTP, ISTJ combo, but in the different direction. Very much about working on, for them, it's about conserving their energy. It's about creating high quality flow of process. That is the thing for them, and they like being exposed to new ideas and possibilities and perspectives for its own sake, so their experience of the world can be freshened up, you could say. And they're sort of quite peaceful, quiet individualists, but they're unlikely to get this idea, I'm going to be a monk and I'm going to train myself up in that sort of way. They lack any kind of romanticization of what they're doing. It's like, no, I just happen to do this, and there's nothing particularly special about what I'm doing here. Whereas for you, there's a gravitation towards extremity, right? You becoming the monk and whacking yourself over the head with branches. That is extreme stuff. You take on passions and you pursue these to an extremity. That's not very SLI. SLI is about moderation in all things. But for you, it isn't about moderation. You have the ability to keep your extremity sustainable through discipline, through processes, but it's not something which is about moderation and the golden mean for its own sake. It's for you about finding the underlying rules behind the universe, which will allow you to then act and actually create some kind of impact. I think LSI is making quite a lot of sense. Marius is suggesting, I'm thinking that. You ever seen One Piece?
Yeah.
Zoro from One Piece.
Yeah, I relate to him. Yeah.
Right. And this is the guy who, again, goes to extremes, but is able to sustain himself through those extremes. Like, he knows exactly how far he can actually push himself. And he's also someone who has, at least in his relationship to Luffy, he understands what the rules are of piracy in a very clear way. Like, he's the one who said, unless when there's a fallout between Luffy and Usopp, unless Usopp were to actually bow and scrape and beg to be allowed on, you mustn't let it back on. Otherwise, you've compromised everything that you're doing. You've cheapened yourself. So this understanding of the underlying values and principles of piracy is very a key thing for LSI. They're not compromising on those principles. So yeah, I think LSI. Do you have any questions?
No, this was great. Wow.
Right.
I was very worried. I was just like, I'm making it difficult for him. I was very worried. I was just like, I don't know how to help because I'm impaired. I can't fully reflect on myself. I'm glad my brother came to help though. So
yeah, but that was useful. That was like an extra check for me to see what's going on, how you're being perceived. Is it lining up? What you're saying about yourself lines up with how people perceive you a lot more than I was suspecting or thinking. So it's, that was that extra validation. So I realized, despite said impairment, you what you're reflecting on yourself is ringing true with people who are around you and seeing you. So it's about finding what could explain these perceived discrepancies, and that seems to best describe it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I like a challenge. I need to do in a way, it's people who have different sorts of impairments. That is what makes this so much more interesting and also challenging. Like an example, I once had an IEI who had autism.
Oh,
so there's something impinging on how the person used their ethics.
Okay.
In your case, it's something impinging on how you use your focus and clarity. So it's just utterly fascinating to explore these sorts of examples. Yeah, Dominic, thank you so much for your time. I look for, if you have any further questions, please feel free to send me an email and I'll respond when I can.
Okay. Thank you.
All the best.
Bye-bye.